This was definitely the strongest city in a different world. Humans and creatures coexisted. The folk customs here are simple. If you run on the street casually, you can see monsters bombarding indiscriminately with rockets and immediately killing several lucky passers-by. What on earth is this? It turns out that 3 years ago, the different world crossed to the Earth in reverse, and the gate of the different world opened in New York. The thick fog enveloped the whole city, and then it became the junction between the different world and human beings. A few days ago, our protagonist, Leo, originally brought his sister here to punch in and take pictures. But as a result, he happened to bump into the god of another world and insisted on giving the brother and sister an eye. As a result, Leo has the strongest eye of God, but his sister is blind. In order to help his sister see the light again, he came to this city and wanted to ask for help from a mysterious organization named Libra. The penniless young man can only grab free coffee in a hamburger joint. Seeing that he is pitiful, the kind clerk gave him a set meal. Suddenly, a poppy monkey appears and grabs Leo's camera. Leo rushed out of the door and immediately chased the little monkey on the road. Unexpectedly, he was involved in a theft after just 2 steps. The bold weirdo raised his hand and fired 2 guns, which immediately blew up a group of lucky spectators. As Leo looked up, a foot had already stepped on his face. Unexpectedly, the one who came was Zap, a member of Lebra. He was face blind and thought Leo was a new member, so he directly pulled Leo into the club. Sister Lang, who was in charge of intelligence, saw through the truth at a glance. Leo wasn't the newcomer they were looking for. He was so angry that Zap immediately asked why you didn't say it earlier.
Tell me earlier. Why didn't you say it earlier? Why didn't you say it earlier? You should have finished earlier?
Just at this embarrassing moment, the TV suddenly broadcast a news that after the bald weirdo was caught, he actually summoned a demon god and instantly killed the police. This was all the fault of the fallen king, one of the 13 kings of the other world. This guy is a fun person. Just because he felt bored recently, he arranged such a game. He released half of the demon god's body, and the other half of his body was inside the second floodgate. If the demon god merged together, the world would be finished. Therefore, people had to find and destroy the floodgate. The second gate is on this poppy monkey, and every few minutes the gate opens, causing damage to the surroundings at the same time. Klaus, the boss of Libra, protected Leo with his own body and arranged for his wolf sister to catch the poppy monkey. Klaus didn't blame Leo. Instead, he was surprised to see the demon god's attack. Chap was also shocked. How could this weak chicken see it? Therefore, he suspected that Leo was an undercover agent. Leo had no choice but to tell the story of God's eye. After he explained the whole story, he felt extremely guilty for blinding his sister's behavior, calling himself a coward. Klaus didn't rush to blame Leo. Instead, he wanted to give him another chance. Let Leo join Libra and solve this crisis with Chap, so that Libra would help his sister see the light again. Then the two of them chased the poppy monkey with half a demon god attached to it together. But they were attacked by the demon god halfway, and the surroundings instantly turned into ruins. Leo found that the sister and boss of the clerk of the hamburger restaurant were crushed under the ruins. The clerk advised Leo to leave here quickly, but Leo finally made up his mind. The crisis must be resolved. This time he won't be cowardly anymore, and then went straight to the poppy monkey. When the half-town demon god was ready to kill Leo, Zap rescued him. Seeing that this young man was quite brave, Zap also took out a bloodlighter to fight the demon god one-on-one. The task of killing the poppy monkey was handed over to Leo. Zap rushed towards the half-suppressed demon god at a high speed of 100 meters. He slashed it with a single blade, and the demon god actually regenerated at an excessive speed, returning to its original state. Zap didn't panic in the slightest. He turned his blood knife into silk and tightly wrapped around the demon god before opening it wide. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Leo rushed to the poppy monkey. He thought that the monkey should have no harm, so he observed carefully with his divine eye. It turned out that all the secrets were in this flea. After strangling the fleas to death, a crisis was resolved. The game failed, so angry that King Doro was furious. After all, if Yinsu Monkey was killed, the demon god would instantly be reborn, which would be extremely harmful. After settling this crisis, Leo officially joined the Blaira Tribulation Saint. Soon, his divine vehicle came into play at a glance. This ordinary truck in front of him, but what he saw in his eyes was the scene of human trafficking. The demon cultivator sensed Leo's god's eye and launched a sneak attack, causing Zap to be seriously injured with a single blade. He could only watch helplessly as Leo was captured by the monster. Sister Wolf wanted to track Leo's location, but the opponent's illusion technique was too powerful, and she quickly lost her target. After Leo is caught in the ghost van, he discovers that it is full of vacuum-packed humans. The magic that had cast illusions on the car appeared and called out that Leo actually had the eyes of gods, so he was ready to return to the demon world for dissection. Seeing the ghost car drive towards the depths of the other world, Leo couldn't do anything about it. After all, he didn't know anything other than having the eye of God. On the other side, however, Zap, who seemed to be seriously injured, was in a coma, but in fact, he was concentrating on coagulating his blood into a thread. It turns out that before Leo was captured, Zap quietly glued blood to Leo's body and connected one end of the thread to him through the hospital. His blood belt continuously transported blood, connecting him with Leo dozens of kilometers away. At this time, Lebra was all ready. As soon as the ghost car stops, everyone will rush to the scene immediately. In the truck, Leo learned the new skill of the Eye of God, which could project his vision into the eyes of others. When he caused this trouble, the monsters were about to kill him immediately, forcing Leo to open up. All the eyes in the truck were controlled by the illusion of the eye of God. In an instant, he was caught by Chap, who was thousands of miles away. He lit the lighter on the spot and flew towards the ghost truck. Sister Wolf followed closely. She then asked the butler to move towards the truck at full speed according to Sister Wolf's GPS and arrived at the truck at the same time as the line of fire. One of the monsters took the lead in attacking, and in the next second he was kicked hundreds of times by Brother Scar Steven. The other monster was about to draw its saber when he saw Klaus charging straight towards him. After solving the monster, all the members of Glera came to the hospital. Because the boss's firepower was too strong, Leo became the biggest wounded in this incident. It was really miserable. It took a long time to hang out during the hospitalization. Unexpectedly, I accidentally went to the cemetery and met a strange girl. When the two met for the first time, the girl called out Leo's name and said that she was a wandering ghost. Leo quickly took a photo after listening to it. This operation can be done. The little girl was amused, and he was also interested in this humorous haha man. The girl's name was Xiaobai. He had been recuperating in the hospital for 3 years because of his health. Only his brother would visit him occasionally. He really wanted to see the outside world, so Leo showed him the photos he had taken. In this way, the two of them quickly became good friends. Before Leo was discharged from the hospital, he also promised to come again in the future. When he left by subway, he bumped into a strange teenager. The other party seemed to see through Leo's eyes. After suggesting that he had better not go to see vampires, a red light suddenly erupted and disappeared. When Leo returned, he would tell everyone about it. Everyone immediately gathered around him, indicating that the person Leo saw was a vampire. The next day, he invited a few experts on vampire countermeasures nicknamed Lucky Brother. As soon as I got off the plane exploded. When I reached the intersection and was about to cross the road, the truck ran out of control. Lucky Brother was unscathed, but the people around me were miserable. It turns out that Lucky Brother was cursed by vampires because he was too famous, but his good luck would bring bad luck to his surroundings, so everyone disliked him. Brother Lucky took out his suitcase. It actually contained the severed hand of a vampire elder. In the severed hand was a piece of paper recording the real name of the vampire elder. As long as they knew their real name, they could seal it. At this moment, Leo opened his eyes and wanted to see the words on the piece of paper clearly, but he didn't expect to fall to the ground in pain in the next second. Sparks flew from his eyes. This ferocious power was too strong, and Leo had to rest for a while after using his eyes too much. In order to investigate vampires, everyone took the subway to the Eternal Void, the center of the city. By observing the Elder's DNA code, Brother Lucky thought that Leo already had the ability to detect vampires, so he asked Leo to use the God's Eye to sense the location of the vampire Elder in the depths of Dawu. As he activated his divine eye, Leo immediately saw countless red shadows. All of them were vampires. Their strength instantly caused Leo to suffer heavy injuries. At the same time, the housekeeper also received a notification that an Elder level had appeared in a station. The other vampires only needed to breathe lightly, and dozens of human policemen wearing exoskeleton armor would all die. Moreover, they would turn into zombies to obey his orders. The enemy was so powerful this time, I'm afraid Klaus wouldn't be able to deal with it without him. Steven and KK were the first to meet the enemy. The two of them came up and started fighting directly. Steven kicked the female elder, but was scared by the glance of the female elder and retreated one after another. Although KK's bullet caused damage, the female elder also recovered instantly. With a little force, KK and Steven were instantly killed. Klaus, who was watching the battle from a distance, was furious and immediately asked Leo to use his divine eye to determine the real name of the elder. Just when the teammates on the front line were in a desperate situation, the train finally arrived. Klaus descended from the sky and threw a heavy punch at him. At the same time, he recited the real name of the female elder. After seeing the power of the elder vampires, Leo was extremely frustrated. Thousands of such powerful monsters lurked in this city. Even if they survived today, what would happen tomorrow? But seeing the light of the right path in Lebra and the others, he had hope again. Because a powerful enemy is not terrible, and giving up without making efforts is a real coward. At the same time, the vampire who had met Leo came to the hospital to find Xiaobai. It turned out that he was Xiaobai's brother. In the evening, Leo came to find Xiaobai, only to find that the sister was inexplicably angry. Unfortunately, Leo didn't make her happy. The young man had a headache, but he didn't want to ask Neptune Zav for help. Just as the two were clamoring about to gather on their way to Lebra, an oversized monster chariot rushed out and began to devour everything on its way. Zap and Leo were stunned. They were two unlucky guys. Their motorcycles were almost falling apart. In the end, Sister Wolf was still standing on the street lamp watching the play. After all, he couldn't do this. Eventually, the ground cracked, sending Leo flying and hanging onto the monster chariot. At this moment, he also met the owner of the monster chariot, the Paranoid King, one of the 13 previous kings. He was also very interested in Leo's God's Eye. In this way, Leo became the hostage of the partial king. Then he found out from the film king that his boyfriend was a monster named Brody. Although he had a very appetizing personality, he was ugly. So the film king chopped Brody into meat sauce, then drained the blood of Handsome Bloodhammer and poured Brody into it. In this way, the perfect boyfriend in the heart of the King of Films is formed. And the reason why he caused a huge riot in the city was to rescue his boyfriend Snowhammer. After hearing this, Leo didn't want to be with this crazy woman for a second. At the same time, my teammates also came to the super abnormal human research center where the Bloodhammer was held. As soon as Lucky Brother untied the bondage, the blood of the Bloodhammer splashed out, grabbed Lucky Brother, and a head similar to Venom appeared, clamoring to eat Lucky Brother. It turned out that he was Brody. After learning that there was a chance to avenge the King of Heaven, the group quickly set off to rescue Leo. The King of Heaven greets his lover happily, while Snowhammer's heart is full of nightmarish memories. Brody immediately flew out of Snowhammer's body and activated the snow armor in the air, transforming into a red giant. He punched the monster vehicle and directly stopped the vehicle. However, the reverse impact also sent him flying, causing everyone to spend a long time to find him back. After all the members gathered, they also made a plan to intercept the monster car. After seeing his lover, the King of Films was very happy. He insisted on dragging Leo to talk about love. He also insisted on asking Leo if there was a girl he liked. Seeing that Leo didn't want to, he kicked him again and again. Leo had to say that there was a girl named Xiaobai who had a good relationship. In the film, he ordered the young man to confess if he liked others. At this moment, the monster car started again and the steel behemoth was invincible. As a pure love warrior, the King of Films would definitely not give up until he caught the Snowhammer. At this time, Steven contacted Leo and told him that Lebra had all assembled to deal with the King of Films. The first step of the plan was to let Leo's God's Eye control the vision of the monster vehicle and lead him to Lebra's ambush. With the forced activation of the Divine Eye, the monster vehicle smoothly turned its direction and avoided the gathering area of human beings. Next, Steven used Ice Escape to freeze the wheels of the monster car and slide directly towards Klaus. Klaus opened his blood shield and completely sent the monster car into the sky. What awaited him was the final blow of the blood car. On this day, Bloodhammer and Brody had been waiting for a long time. When the King of Films merged them together, their lives were closely merged. As time went by, the two gradually became friends, but their hatred for the King of Films never diminished. The powerful force of the vehicle armor caused the surrounding space to distort. The monster vehicle was dried up to the sky on the spot, and then gradually disintegrated. Hundreds of millions of fragments fell from the sky, causing hundreds of thousands of casualties. A storm ended in such a dramatic way. Fortunately, Leo was only slightly injured this time. However, when I went to the hospital, Xiaobai was chatting with the handsome doctor on duty. Leo wanted to leave quietly, but the more he thought about it, the more he couldn't let it go. In the end, he didn't know where the courage came from and pulled Little White up, who was confused. Rush to the cinema. This is the first date between the two, and the movie tells the story of a pair of twins. The younger brother is the favored son of heaven, but the older brother is a loser. It is obvious that it is a comedy, but for some reason, Xiaobai shed tears. Seeing this, Leo also felt emotional. He said that his sister was also outstanding. Although he was an elder brother, he always caused trouble to his sister. He was really a trash. After a wonderful date, when Leo went to find Xiaobai again, he actually saw the boy he had met in the subway before. Only then did he realize that the boy was Xiaobai's brother, Xiaohei. Strangely, Leo told the story of their meeting on the subway, but Blackie seemed completely unaware of it. After that, the two made an appointment to talk in a restaurant, and Xiaohei told Leo that Xiaobai's heart had not been very good, so he stayed in the hospital for a long time. Since both sisters were in similar circumstances, they were congenial and soon became good friends. Unexpectedly, at this moment, the waiter realized that he had made a mistake and saw that the boiling hot coffee was about to spill on Leo. However, the next second, the coffee actually stopped in the air, as if time had stopped. Leo had never expected that Blackie would actually be a superpower holder. He had never imagined that Blackie would actually be a superpower holder. It turns out that Xiaohei and his family are all warlock families, and they have different abilities from generation to generation. Later, Xiaohei took Leo to the museum of the city and told him the origin of the city. 3 years ago, a disaster that was named the Great Collapse occurred in this city. Not only did it have a huge impact on the human world, it also shocked the other world, causing humans to blend with the other world. However, what more people don't know is that many powerful supernatural warlocks rushed to New York from other worlds and the Earth, and jointly opened a huge barrier to prevent the collapse and spread. Leo deeply admired Blackie for knowing so much of the history of the Great Collapse. As everyone knows, Xiaohei almost lost his sister because of that incident, and he never wants to go through it again. In the evening, Leo took Xiaohei back to his residence by bike, and the two chatted while riding. At this time, the city was doing Halloween activities, so Leo mentioned that when he met Xiaobai for the first time, he said that he was a ghost. Xiaohei's eyes suddenly became sad when he heard this. Before leaving, he was very grateful to Leo for taking care of Xiaobai and hoped that he could get along well with his sister. Unexpectedly, after Leo left, Xiaohei whistled from the roadside with the sword cloak and found the paranoid king and the fallen king and declared that it was his turn to do big things. It turned out that there was another soul in his body, that is, one of the 13 kings of the other world. The next second, Steven received a notification from the headquarters that a powerful evil vampire was charging towards the city center. It was certain that it was at least an elder level and a mysterious man was fighting him. Everywhere he went, flames burst into the sky, almost destroying the entire neighborhood. Everyone immediately moved. At the same time, they rushed to the battlefield. The two guys who were confronting each other didn't look good. KK and Steven didn't know which one to fight. With their experience, they quickly determined which vampire was, and activated their abilities to seal it. However, they didn't expect another old monster to turn around and pursue Pooh. And that vampire had unexpectedly lifted the seal and started to regenerate. At this moment, the old monster grabbed Zagu and appeared again, releasing countless blood threads, restricting the movement of the vampire. Then the fire threads were ignited, swallowing the whole vampire in the flames all over the sky. However, it was not too late. The old monster replied with one hand, and a strong tornado formed around the flames. The feudal fire turned into an egg with eyes on its surface, amid the wailing sound of the vampires. At this time, the old monster told everyone through Chap's mouth that this was a closed form used by vampires to protect themselves when they were dying. After looking at the miracle for a long time, even a fool knew who the old monster was. He was the founder of the staying blood technique and Chap's master, blood fighting god, who saw Zap's corrupted appearance. He was furious and prepared to take Zap away for retraining. Although the rest of Libra were all juniors in front of the blood battle god, they still didn't want their good teammate Zap to leave. Seeing this, the blood battle god proposed a trial for Zap to destroy the sealing bomb of the elder vampire. However, if he wanted to completely destroy him, he had to destroy all 6 eyes at the same time. This trial was simply a fantasy. Zap was almost bitten to death before he even made a move. Thinking about his tragic experiences since he became a student, he might be cold this time. Zap was already on the verge of collapse. However, at this moment, Sister Wolf received a phone call from the lady of the hamburger restaurant, saying that she wanted to talk to Zap for an in-depth exchange overnight. Sister Wolf said with regret that Zap was probably dying and couldn't keep the appointment. But Zap heard this clearly. After he was done, Chap immediately went to grab electricity with Sister Wolf. He was looking forward to dating the goddess, but he received a phone call from the customer service of the machine. Chap was deceived by Sister Wolf, and Leo tried to see through the Elder's real name. Unfortunately, even the Eye of God couldn't see through it, so everyone couldn't completely seal it. The blood-fighting god told everyone that the reason why they couldn't see it was because the egg was only the avatar of the vampire Elder, and its real body was on a passenger plane. In the cabin, there was also a handsome fish companion. He was Jita, the second disciple of the blood-fighting god. The passenger plane rushed straight for the city, and the people in the city didn't notice that a crisis was imminent. Just caring about enjoying the festive atmosphere, the 3 troublemaking kings of other worlds are also mixed among the tourists. The fallen king was dissatisfied with the delay in the plot planned by the Despair King, but he didn't know that the Despair King had already arranged everything so that he could watch the play with peace of mind. As the passenger plane approached, a huge tentacle stretched out from underwater and instantly rolled the passenger plane into pieces. Only the nose of the plane relied on inertia to continue to impact. With Klaus's command, Bloodhammer transformed on the spot and hugged the nose of the aircraft to slow down the impact. On the other side, Klaus picked up Leo and played extreme jumps with Zap. In midair, he continuously created crosses to buffer, successfully landed on the 88th floor, and found the enemy. Then, Leo opened his divine eyes and began to read the real name of the Blood Clan. After giving his name to Klaus, he could leave as a group pet. Bloodhammer picked Leo up and prepared to retreat. But at this moment, Leo also saw the red light flashing from the building. It seems that some kind of seal has broken. This was the conspiracy of the King of Despair. He wanted to destroy the barrier that prevented the Great Collapse, thus destroying the world. Along with the attack on the barrier, Little White's heart actually felt extremely severe pain, and he collapsed in the hospital on the spot. At the same time, Chapu also saw Junior Brother Mermaid getting trapped on the street. His old habit of mocking was repeated. When he came up, he mocked Junior Brother for being a salted fish, which made his face black with anger. At this moment, the vampire elder summoned the sealing bomb and directed it to the main body. When the 2 halves of his body were combined, he would completely destroy the group of ants in Libra before him. What's wrong with you? The vampire elder summoned the sealing bomb and led it to the main body. When the 2 halves of his body were combined, he would completely destroy the group of ants in Libra. The situation is critical. Too late to bicker with Zap, and Jet immediately enters combat mode. The blood spear flew out and turned into countless blood veins in the air, charging towards the vampire elder. All that remained was for the blood battle god to ignite the bloodline and severely injure the vampire elders when they merged. However, the blood battle god didn't intend to attack. He just wanted to force Zap and Jet to fight together. At this point, the junior brothers had no choice but to use the unique skill of staying blood technique. Elder Quick, who was stronger than a complete body, was forcefully struck in his heart. Finally, it was finished by the boss Klaus, and the 999 sealing technique ended brilliantly. They saved the city again. Rising East God was very satisfied with everyone's strength. In this way, he could safely leave his his second disciple behind and travel around the world. Master Thunder doesn't want him anymore. Jia Tao also fainted from anger on the spot. Libra's operation not only sealed the blood race, but also accidentally destroyed the plan of the Despair King, but it couldn't be forgotten. The King of Despair felt more and more that the God's Eye was extremely important, so he borrowed an instrument from the King of Deviation. So that he could take off the God's Eye, King of Despair was overjoyed. He took the instrument and went to Xiaobai and told him that as long as Leo's eyes were taken back, he would let Xiaohei's body go. Although Little White couldn't bear to hurt Leo, he didn't have the right to choose when facing the safety of his relatives. After King Xuanwen left, Little White also remembered his father when he was young. What Pro once said to him, "If your brother goes astray one day, help him." At that time, Little White still felt puzzled. How could his gentle brother learn badly? Now, the predictions have come true one by one. Thinking of this, the little girl finally cried powerlessly. As for Xiaohei, who was captured by the Despair King, laughed wildly in the cemetery of the hospital, shedding black tears of despair. On the other side, under the leadership of Brother Lucky, Lebra met with the Warlock Association that maintained cleanliness. The boss of the Warlock Association said that the previous battle between Lebra and the Blood Elders destroyed the enchantment of stability and collapse. Now the enchantment is on the verge of its limit. At that time, the warlocks in charge of repairing it were also dead, but their children were still alive. They were probably the key to repairing the enchantment, so I hoped Lebra would help investigate and protect their children. The person the boss of the Warlock Association was talking about was none other than Little Black, Little White, and their family. The two siblings' parents were both powerful warlocks of the Warlock Association, and their powers were passed down from generation to generation through their bloodline. However, something happened to Xiaobai's place. The older brother inherited double the powers, and the younger sister was not only an ordinary person, but also suffered from a congenital heart disease. Therefore, in Xiaobai's eyes, cowardly Xiaohei not only hides his superpowers, but also is bullied every day at school. No matter how you look at it, it's a waste of talent. Every time you see your cowardly brother, Xiaobai will be angry. However, one day, several gangsters in the school snatched Xiaobai's camera. When the cowardly Blackie saw all this, he rushed up without hesitation and went to the gangster who usually bullied him to ask for a camera. As a result, the gangsters threw Xiaobai's camera off the bridge, and Blackie pounced on it regardless of his life's danger, but he went to the hospital. Xiaobai finally understood his brother's love for him. Facing his crying sister, Xiaohei also told the reason why he hid his superpower. It turned out that when they were young, his sister rubbed a very beautiful mud ball and wanted to get his brother's praise, but Xiaohei thought he was showing off, so he broke Xiaobai's mud ball. I thought my sister would cry, but Xiaobai didn't care at all. Instead, he started rubbing up new mud balls. Xiaohei was ashamed of what he had done, so from then on, he decided that he would never abuse his ability again until he became stronger than his sister. Since more than 10 nights, the inner gap between brother and sister has been broken, and they finally become close. However, such ordinary daily life was completely broken in the Great Collapse. At that time, their parents died in the enchantment, and a mysterious ball of light appeared, trying to occupy Xiaobai's body, but Xiaohei bravely stood up and wanted to sacrifice himself in exchange for his sister's life. With the infiltration of the light ball, Little Black officially became the container of the Despair King. This was Little White and Little Black's unknown past. It happened that Zap was hospitalized with a bad stomach on this day, so Xiaobai took the opportunity to find Leo, who was visiting the doctor. Jet didn't want to be a light bulb. He went back first, while Little White brought Leo to the deserted church. Facing the kind Leo, Xiaobai hesitated several times. It was not until the Despair King arrived that Xiaobai finally made up his mind. In order to save his brother, he could only choose to sacrifice Leo. Amid Little White's cry and the whistle of the Despair King, Leo was dragged step by step into the abyss. With Leo's consciousness, he could finally see the magic array covering the entire city with a glance at the King of Despair. Then, he burned his life and found the weakness of the array. It turned out that the weakness was on Little White. As the Despair King stimulated the barrier, Little White's heart also began to ache intensely, and eventually he fell into a coma and collapsed. Yeah, it turns out that in order to save him, his parents used the key points of the enchantment to replace his heart, thus maintaining his life all the time. After King of Yan learned about this, he mercilessly took Xiaobai back to the church and shot him through the heart with a gun. As the barrier that replaced Little White's heart shattered, the second great collapse began again. The elites of the Warlock Association immediately rushed to the core of the barrier to stabilize it. However, due to the lack of key arrays, the situation is not optimistic. To prevent the situation from becoming irreparable, Lebra was officially commissioned to assist in the search for the lost circle. Brother Goodluck found before going to bed that although the disaster is coming, the gravity of the city has not changed at present, which means that the enchantment has not been completely destroyed. The old man of the Masters Association said that this was probably because the last barrier had not been destroyed, because Little White had lived with the barrier for so many years, he had directly assimilated with it. Now, the hidden Little White was the key to solving the problem. Only Leo's God's Eye could find him in this world, so finding Leo was the key to breaking the situation. So Lebra immediately attacked with all his staff and began to look for this most important group pet. At this moment, the Jew King also realized the problem. He had to find a way to use Leo's glance to find Little White. As everyone knew, Leo was actually found by the Fallen King first. To the Fallen King, simply destroying the world was too boring, so he wanted to play a game with Leo, so he let Leo go. Although his power still hadn't recovered, Leo still relied on his obsession to walk towards the ground, step by step. At this moment, the ground was in chaos. Despair King used Blackie's natural powers to turn everywhere he passed into ruined buildings, flying all over the sky. It was said that the association had sensed the source of the power, and it was Blackie. The investigator quickly informed Klaus to stop the despair Wang Ran sister will soon completely collapse. In order to increase the atmosphere of apocalypse, the fallen net summoned countless zombies, making the scene even more chaotic. Leo thought of Little White in his heart. He turned to the rest of Lebra, and finally light appeared in front of his eyes. But it was not light, but a collapsed city. Seeing this apocalyptic scene, Leo's psychological pressure finally collapsed. Jizumaki also found him at this time and brought the last video recorded by Xiaobai.
Flirting with me?
I did indeed. I conducted the entire performance. Don't eat you a good meal.
Now, Leo finally understood that Little White must have been threatened by someone. His heart was still towards him, so Leo regained his strength and decided to find Xiaobai by himself. Leo was rushing with all his strength all the way, and groups of ghouls suddenly appeared on the way forward. At this critical moment, his teammates finally found him. Brother Lucky told Leo that Xiaobai was his sister's secret. As everyone knew, Leo had already guessed everything, and all that was left was to go to his sister's place to find the boxing champion and stop his plot. Leo continued to rush forward without hesitation, while his usual teammates rushed out one by one to help him save the day again and again. As a member of Lebra, he's never fighting alone, so just go ahead boldly for now. Even if he was injured by the impact of the explosion, even if the god's eye was smoking from overuse, all this could not stop Leo from moving forward. At this moment, a large number of ghouls appeared in front of him, but under the skills of KK and Steven, all the monsters were trapped in place. Leo walked through it, and his brave back made KK feel a little similar to Klaus. I don't know what I'm doing. He walked through it. His courageous back actually made KK feel like he looked like Klaus. At this time, in the Shattered Church, the Orange Demon King was also waiting for the last moment, and he also ushered in the strongest challenger, Klaus, the boss of Blera. His purpose was only one, that was, to get the Orange Demon King to hand over Xiaohei. Of course, King Ju couldn't obediently submit to it, since he wanted to summon the meteorite to commit suicide. Klaus blocked it with an unbreakable shield. King Ju also knew that Klaus would never let Blackie's body be injured, so he actually controlled Klaus to choke his own neck. Faced with the control of a top-notch ability, Klaus forcefully used brute force to break it free. He would rather sacrifice himself to protect the young man's Joquan in front of him. King of Despair finally realized that this was an endless battle, and then showed his true skills to compete with Klaus. Klaus was worthy of being the ceiling of Lebra's battle power, and he was not inferior to the Despair King of the 13 Kings of the other world. The Eternal Shield broke through all barriers, and the Eternal Spear pierced through all the rubble. However, in the end, the King of Despair was even better. He teleported behind Klaus. There was a loud sound, and the sky was filled with light and rubble at the same time. When the dust settled, Klaus was already lying in a pool of blood. Just as desperation was about to win, Leo finally arrived at the battlefield. With Leo's appearance, the sunshine of hope gradually dispelled the haze of the city. Perhaps this young man's strength is very weak, but he has a strong, heroic heart. Leo activated his consciousness and saw Blackie crying. He still wanted to live, so Leo shouted Xiaobai's name loudly, and the heartbreaking hero stood in the center of the world. He finally saw Xiaobai again and told him that you were the only one who could save Xiaobai now. Despair is not terrible, don't make an effort. Just giving up is a real coward. At this moment, Little White finally mustered up the courage to resist the King of Despair. At the same time, Blackie was also resisting. Leo seized the opportunity and rushed forward to deliver a righteous hammer. The moment the two of them looked at each other, the vision of the god's eye shared, allowing Black in the Despair King to see White as well. Xiaohei finally returned. He wanted to keep Little White, but there was not much energy left in his body, and Little White felt that he was extremely satisfied that he could stay for 3 more years. Now it was time to say goodbye, so Xiaohei used his remaining strength to reluctantly turn Xiao White into a seal and repair the whole city. With the brother and sister as the center, countless golden vines fixed the city, and the crisis of the world collapse was finally lifted. At this moment, Little White turned into a disc that flew towards Leo, leaving behind the last kiss and leaving forever. Klaus also praised Leo's wonderful performance from the bottom of his heart. This time Leo saved everything, and he was a well-deserved hero. Although Leo wanted to face everything with a smile, he couldn't hold back and cried.
You'd sick quack quack ghost, yo!
The first season of Bloodfront is over this time. I have to say that this is indeed a wild and unfettered work. Whether it's the eye-catching setting of a different world, the high-level fighting painting, the funny daily description, and Leo's obvious growth curve, it's all in place. And with top-level excellent music, it directly brings the style of the whole fan to life. Of course, the shortcomings of this show are also obvious. That is his narrative problem. The narrative of the unit drama makes many settings seem fragmented, and what the Desperate King did was not clearly explained, so there was a feeling of a riddler, but overall it was still narrow and unspeakable. Love Fantasy Blood. The little friends of the story must not miss it. As for what kind of adventure Leo will have next and how he can help his sister regain the light, it won't be revealed until next season. Finally, remember to help Sister Guan pay attention to praise. Let's see you in the second season.